Hello, I'm Rajiv back again, and I hope you can hear what I'm saying because I have not made a script for this particular video, so I'm going to carry on speaking as I normally do. So, in this image, on this video, I intend to take you through a couple of images because I want to raise a question or ask you a question, which is, what do you want in your final image? It's something which is worth thinking about. So I was originally planning to make an edit, but maybe I'll do that later this week. I'll do a separate video editing an image in a particular software. So let's move on right now. In your final image, what will you create? What do you want your final image to look like? Now, one of the easiest ways to achieve a final look or a final image is to use pre-made filters and presets. So for instance, if you are uploading an image into Instagram, it's easy. You upload the image and all of a sudden you have these wonderful, wonderful filters which will change the look of your photograph. Similarly, when you use Lightroom or when you use any other program like let's say Luminar Neo, and if you just use a preset, then that's it. Now this easy approach makes your image look like everyone else's. There is no creativity from you. So you need to experiment, think about your story and what you want to convey. You have the option of starting with a preset if you want and then editing it further. That is better than just using a preset as the be all and end all. So you need to use or apply your own thought to what you want to create in the image or what you want to do while editing a photograph, and what is the final story that you want to tell. Experiment. Oops, sorry, and if you don't mind, I'll take a sip of water. So let's look at a few examples. This first image is an old image, and I shot this at Sihu, which means the West Lake, in Hangzhou, China. I shot this in the JPEG format actually. Since then I've only been shooting in RAW, but this was the JPEG image that the camera created. Now what happens when you are shooting in the JPEG? The camera makes all the decisions for you. It processes the image and it spits it out. So this was an image I shot at dawn at the West Lake. I had gone there for business and I decided to walk in the morning. I like the overall atmosphere at the West Lake. It's really beautiful, really calm. But when you look at this image, what do you see? You see that the men are dark because the lower half of the image is in shadow and the sky is bright. You also see poles sticking out, looking very strange, but I decided not to remove them. I could not use a tripod because when you have people moving, then they're not going to stay in one place just for you. Now here is the first edit that I made. It is a very simple edit and there's not much in this. This is the second. I use DXO Film Pack for this, and if you have a look at the image, you'll find that the clouds on the right have a slightly pinkish orangish hue and the water has a similar orangish hue. The men are a little bit brighter but not too much. Again, I didn't do anything specific. I essentially used the pre-made filter or the preset in DXO Film Pack, made a few adjustments and created this image. In this one, I used Luminar Neo, and well, what can I say? This effect is rather bizarre. I was experimenting with all kinds of looks, and I said, all right, finally, let's just go ahead with this. So it's a fairly bizarre look, actually. I don't think I would ever put this out on social media or anywhere. This one has more potential. I could do some further editing in Photoshop and create something which looks nice. Back to Luminar Neo. And in the fourth edit, I did something else entirely. I created a black and white image using a preset in Photoshop. But then what did I do? I gently brushed away much of the black and white in the center part of the image. And this particular preset has a strong blur. So when you look at the image, you'll find that the right side is black and white. The sky on the right is black and white, but the water, the men are colored. So you can create some nice fancy effects depending on what you want to do. Again, this would never be the final image, because when you look at the image very carefully and look at the sky above the trees, the sky above the trees looks very strange. It does not gel with the rest of the sky. So probably what I would do is keep the entire sky black and white and only brush away the black and white section part in the water close to the men and the men. So you need to experiment, work around, and then figure out what you want to do. Now, none of these images are the final images, and I put them up here only because I want to illustrate what you can actually do in terms of experimentation. So here you have them, the four images side by side, and keep in mind that if you're going to put them onto social media, then because of the small size of the social media, you can get away with a lot of nonsense. But if you're going to put them up on your website, if you're going to print them, you need to do a lot of work with the image. And now let's look at this image on a crowded street in Daryaganj, Delhi. What do you see here? You see this young boy stuck in the traffic, looking bored out of his wits. You see a man behind him, you see a car behind him, and you see these two vans in front of him. So this is the first, the original image, and it's a fairly crowded image. Nothing really stands out. Yes, you can see the boy, but there's a lot that's happening that distracts you. This is my first edit in the black and white. I think this is better because I've darkened the vans a little bit, and I have brightened the young boy and directed your attention towards him. But I've been experimenting with what I want to do with black and white, and I decided that maybe something darker would be good. So I moved on, and here we have it. I have now focused almost exclusively on the boy. He's bright, as you can see. The background is a bit dark. The vans are much darker, but you can still see a little bit of the van. You still see something of the texture of the van. You know there's a van in front. I personally prefer this image because it focuses attention on the young lad on the scooter looking bored without taking away too much. And here are the three images again, side by side. Now you decide what you prefer, and well, I have my choices anyway. The Red Fort, the walled city of Delhi, India. When I posted this image on Facebook, a lot of people commented, not on the photograph, but about the politics surrounding the Mughals. As soon as you enter the Red Fort, you see, this wall, and the police have this horrendous barrier, and you have the cop sitting behind the barbed wire and the fencing. Without the fencing, without the barbed wire, I could have made a very nice photograph, even with the cop sitting there. Because the angular patterns created by the steps and the central steps, and of course the arched doorways, is in itself pretty good. But what do you do? And this is some very bizarre toning. So now this is some very, very bizarre toning. I have this on my hard drive, but I will never ever put this up on social media. So again you see black and white 1, black and white 2, or monochrome 1, monochrome 2. Moving on, Nandi Hill. Well, this is a picture I shot many years ago using my Olympus OM2N camera. You can see my watermark at the bottom. But I want you to pay close attention to the tones in this particular image. You will find that the contrast between the mountain, the clouds, and the rocks in the front is not great. It's a little bit flatter. Now in this image, which I worked on, this is again from a scan, what you can see is that the clouds are much whiter. There's much more definition in the rocks below, and I think it's a bit more dramatic. This is 1 and this is 2. So again, even with a simple scan of a negative, you can do much. This image again from Nandi Hills, Delhi. The image itself doesn't have too much. You have the steps on the left, you have that little structure, the trees, and in this image I added haze. From the top right hand corner moving to the bottom left hand corner, I added haze, which is greater in the top right hand corner and less haze at the bottom left hand corner. And what does the haze do? It creates a little bit of mist, and that misty feeling I thought would give it some more charm. This old man sitting on the hilltop at Nandi Hills, I wanted to isolate him a little bit from the scenery behind him, so I created a vignette and I brightened him a little bit, but the foreground is a little dark and the background, the trees at the back, are much darker, so you are looking at him more than having your eyes move around. So remember also, when you are creating your final effects, what do you want to do? You want to get your viewer to focus on something which you believe is the center of the story. The final image, again, an old black and white image shot with my Olympus OM2N camera. This was at a riverbed, or at a river which my friends and I had gone to visit. We took a bus. I think it was about 2.5 hours away from our college. We missed the last bus back and spent the night in the bus stand. And there was nothing to eat, but it was fun. What did I do to create this final bluish, almost selenium kind of look? And I only used the cloud version of Lightroom. So I just cooled the temperature, and once you cool the temperature, and you have to be a bit careful, don't go over the top. It created this slightly bluish hue, which is almost selenium. So let me go back. You see this? There's a slight sepia tint to this. Now if you go back to this image, it's almost bluish and cool. So what is taking pictures about? Savoring life intensely. I want to leave you with this quote. Taking pictures is savoring life intensely, every 100th of a second. In essence, with every click of the shutter, you are capturing a moment of life. And only when you are alive do you capture something great. I have misspelled his name. It is actually Mark Riboud, which is Riboud. and that's a spelling error. Finally, what software did I use? I used the cloud version of Lightroom. I used Lightroom CC, which is the Lightroom Classic, Photoshop CC24, and for one of the image I used the Palette Effects Photoshop panel by Blake Rudis. I used DXO Film Pack 7. I use Nik Silver FX Pro, which is fantastic if you want to make black and white images, and I use Luminar Neo. The main software I'm using to make this video is TechSmith Camtasia and DaVinci Resolve. The music is from Bensound, www.bensound.com. That's www.bensound.com. Thank you for watching and see you next time.